What's up, guys? It's Kristen, your self-proclaimed QuickBooks nerd. Today, we will be taking a quick look on how to create a new bill in QuickBooks Online. Using terminology in QuickBooks, bills are invoices that we receive from our vendors. These are balances that we have due to the entities that we work with. Recording bills is not a function of all versions of QuickBooks Online. It is not available in Simple Start. This is because not all entities need to record all of the bills that they have due. If we are paying our vendors on recurring payment or auto pay and recording those expenses from our bank feed, we do not need to duplicate our efforts in recording bills and bill payments. Bills are a helpful tool when you are on terms with your vendor, when you have a balance due 30, 60, or 90 days out. It is very helpful for cash flow, knowing what expenses you have due and what cash will be leaving your bank. Let's see how it's done in QuickBooks Online. To record a bill in QuickBooks Online, I'm going to select the New button in the upper left corner of my screen. Under the column labeled Vendors, I'm going to select the third option down for Bill. Earlier I had mentioned that a bill is an invoice that is received from a vendor. When you create a bill, you can only select a name from your vendor list. So notice here it says vendor and choose a vendor. My drop-down is only going to include vendors. Here I'm going to select Norton, Lumber and Building Materials. I point that out because you might notice on other transactions in QuickBooks that it can be labeled as payee, meaning that you can select either a customer or vendor. Bills are very specific in that they must go against a vendor profile. As soon as I select my vendor name here, my mailing address is going to populate from my vendor profile, whatever information I have set up, so if an address does exist, it will populate here. Then I'm going to select my terms. What terms is on my vendor bill? Using this dropdown, QuickBooks gives me a generic set of terms, or most common terms that people use. Here, I'm going to select net 60. If you need additional terms, if your terms are different, you can use the Add New button here to create new terms. I'm going to go with a common term of net 60 though. Next, I'm going to type in my bill date. I'm going to use October 1st, 2021. Based on my bill date and my terms, QuickBooks will automatically calculate my due date here. Next, I'm going to enter in my bill number. That's going to be on my vendor invoice. Down below, I have my category details section. What am I receiving this bill for? This category here, I'm going to use job materials. If I want to, I can include a description for this bill. This description will appear on my reports. If I was looking at a transaction detail report, something like that, I would be able to see what this bill was more specific. I'd be able to see what this bill was for more specifically. So in this case, we're going to select lumber for building A. Then I'm going to enter in the balance I have due to this vendor. So let's say it's $1,000. These fields here for billable, tax, and customer are related to job costing. That we'll cover in another video. The only information that you need here is the vendor that you received the bill from, the bill date and due date, reference number, category, and dollar amount. Once that information is populated, you can select the option to save in the bottom right corner. After entering your bill, best practice would be to include a copy of that bill as an attachment here. You can drag the copy of that bill as a PDF or any Microsoft Office kind of document you can include here. I'm going to select Save and Close in the bottom right corner of my screen. Now that bill has been recorded. There are many different methods to record bills in QuickBooks Online. You can use this New button and then select Bill here, or you can go to your Expense tab and your vendor list. You can find the vendor that you received the bill from, And then here you can select new transaction and enter a bill from this screen. As soon as a bill is entered, notice that bill for that $1,000 that we just created is now listed here, and you can see the open balance has increased by $1,000. Another way to create a bill, if you go to expenses here and go back to your vendor list, when you find your vendor name from your vendor list, there's a drop down along the side along the right side where you can select the option to create a bill. You can also create a bill under the expense tab here, under new transaction, and enter bill. The easiest method to me, personal preference, I like to use the new button here to create new transactions. But that's a personal preference. The more you use QuickBooks, the more familiar you will get with it and find your own personal preference and how you'd like to create your bills.